All right. Well, chat. Unfortunately, I don't have the news that I was hoping we'd get to share today. It's day one of NBA free agency. What's up, everybody? My mic. Let me know if my mic's working. Corey's in the house. Jackson will be here shortly. I meant to dress up for the Ty Jerome funeral. I'm just now remembering that I thought of that stupid little gimmick, but I guess it's too late. I don't feel like doing all that now. It's more sad than I expected.
This sucks.
That's the best way we could just end the stream right there. I think you said
all right. Thanks everyone for joining.
What's going on, everyone on Playback and YouTube? Listen, we got some information on the Ty Jerome stuff. We're gonna break down what just happened with Ty Jerome, talk a little bit about Sam Merrill, talk Cavs free agency in general. We'll wait for Jackson until we officially get started. But I want to say hello to everybody on Playback. We got Aura, Brilliant Damage, Kiki, Demo, Old Kid, Dr. Manhattan, Samra, Everything Cavaliers. What's up, James? Big Rig, Savage, Zinc, David, and one visitor. Welcome in, everybody. Yeah, so I'm sure as you've seen by now, Ty Jerome has signed a 3-year, $28 million contract with the Memphis Grizzlies. It's about $9 million a year. I got to say, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. Everyone knew that I'm trying to filibuster while we wait for Jackson. He's late per usual. I think everyone's
getting assaulted by Dr. Manhattan in the chat.
Listen, Dr. Manhattan is usually a little feisty, and I think he's especially feisty today because of the news. And I can't blame him. Mental health check, it's not doing good. Listen, not only is Ty Jerome gone, but I looked out the window before we started recording, and it looks like it's going to be a beautiful sunset out there. And now I'm not even going to be able to see it because we're talking Ty Jerome going to Memphis. So Jackson's here. He's made it. What's up? What's going on, everybody? Let me make sure the YouTube stream is going as well, and then we can officially get into this because, I think we all have takes to drop right now.
They're all positive.
Yeah, if you couldn't tell, this is going to be a really positive episode. All right, it does look like we are also live on YouTube. What's up to everyone on there? All right, so listen, I'm just going to start us off real quick by saying this. Okay, Jackson's already interrupted.
Well, I was going to say,
let Jackson get initiated.
We should start with the positive. With the positive, and I think the positive is Jackson Flickinger was right.
Oh,
this was a big week of dubs for Jackson Flickinger. I've been telling you Isaac Okoro is not an NBA basketball player for years.
Hold on. We'll get to there. That's the other big
player for years. Sam gets paid. Isaac gets shipped off. Dubs for days. So it's important.
Jackson is one, but at what cost is the question? At what cost? So yes,
that's true. That's true.
We're gonna talk the Ty Jerome news. We're going to talk a little bit about Sam Merrill, what this means for the Cavs next season. We're going to talk about the Lonzo Ball trade, and then wherever the conversation goes from there, we'll go. But I want to start by saying this. The Ty Jerome situation, it's a little more complicated than just straight up, he didn't want to play for Cleveland or the Cavs didn't want to pay him. We're going to break down the nuances to this. But the simple truth is, I think all three of us agree on this, the Cavs are a worse team now than they were a month ago. That's the simple truth. There's some complicated stuff involved in this, but I think objectively, this is a step backwards for the Cavs. It's not they didn't fall off the cliff. They're not going to be a play-in team. I hope they're not going to be a play-in team, but they're still going to be a very good team. The problem is, I think the gap between, I think the Cavs are still the favorites to come out the East, but the gap between them and whoever was second is a little smaller than it was before. So just immediate initial reactions. We all knew that Ty Jerome was probably going to be gone, but before we get deeper into it, I just want to hear immediate reactions. We'll start with Jackson. Ty Jerome, it's officially he's gone. 3 years, $28 million to Memphis. What are you feeling?
I'm feeling not good, and I almost kind of want to shift the conversation to Lonzo Ball first because I think
the immediate zag. No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say because I think that sets because it sets the table where the writing was on the wall when you are there to when you trade for Ball, you're kind of signaling that, hey, we're not going to bring Ty Jerome back. And that's what, from all reporting, that's what it seems like. That was the pivot. We're not going to, if we can't get Ty, we're going to get Lonzo Ball. And we're going to talk about all the things that the Cavs will miss about Ty Jerome. But it's also important to realize that Lonzo Ball is going to bring a lot of things to the Cavs that they didn't previously have. Defensive toughness, versatility to play multiple positions at 6'6". He's somebody who can theoretically play with DG and Mitchell. He's somebody who can be the point guard. He's somebody who can be the only guard. He's somebody who could play the 3, maybe even like the 4 with his rebounding ability, depending on how weird you wanted to get. If you wanted to run a lineup with, a weird closing lineup with Sam Merrill or Max Strus and him at the 4, maybe you could do that.
This is where we have fallen to.
No,
I get what you're saying.
No, but like that's an important skill set where like with Ty Jerome, you don't have somebody who can play multiple positions.
He's a guard.
Somebody who you have somebody who can score the ball, but when you have that versatility of skill set and size, it allows you to do multiple things, and he can guard multiple positions well. So I think that we need to get that out of the way where like Lonzo Ball is a huge win, I think, and I was joking about Isaac Okoro. Isaac Okoro, I think, has a lot of skills. Corey wrote a great article about how the Cavs failed him, and I agreed with nodding my head along with every word that I read. So, so I think that like that's a different discussion, and that was just a joke for Tony and Corey because it's been an inside thing that we've been keeping track of for a while. But yeah, so I think you got to start off with the positives before you really start diving into like, well, why is this such a bad move that you let Ty Jerome go?
Yeah, and to that point, I want to say this. I want to mention this at the top. We're going to talk about the Lonzo Ball thing. From what I was told, from what I understand, the Cleveland Cavaliers before the Lonzo Ball trade had offered Ty Jerome $10 million, however many years. They were going to offer him $10 million. Ty Jerome declined. And why he declined, we don't know. We could speculate on that. But we know for a fact that the Cavs, or at least what I was told, offered Ty Jerome the $10 million. He declined. And then they said, okay, we're going to trade for Lonzo Ball then, who makes $10 million a year and plays the same position. From there, it's all speculation. Our best guess would probably be Ty Jerome thought he was going to get more money. Maybe he didn't want to come back to Cleveland. Maybe he thought he wanted to get more money. There's no telling. That's pure speculation. But the point is, Ty Jerome, now he's in Memphis, and he's only making $9.3 million a year. So really, it kind of seems like maybe he got, he thought he was going to get a bigger deal, and then all of a sudden the door slammed shut on him, and it was, oh, shoot, all right, well, guess I'm going to make $9 million, and I'm going to play a larger role in Memphis, we'd assume. But the Lonzo Ball thing, what I said at the time, and I think we all agreed on this, as a straight-up swap, Isaac Okoro for Lonzo Ball, hell yeah, let's do it. I see the risk. I see the reward. Okoro is a player who the three people on this stage right now have believed in to varying degrees. I have slowly backed away from Okoro Island over the last year or so, but I still think he's a promising 24-year-old. Maybe I think he just turned 24. Great defender, very good defender. Let me say very good defender. Improved as a 3-point shooter, not quite there yet, but like that's a prospect who I think you could have reasonable faith in being a good role player. The problem is, if any player on this Cavs team just wasn't matching the Donovan Mitchell timeline, it was absolutely Okoro. He's not where you would have needed him to be to play legit minutes in a playoff run. And so going for Lonzo Ball, a guy who, sure, he hasn't played any playoff games yet. He hardly plays games to begin with. But I think you could assume that Lonzo Ball, if healthy and available, is more of a 16-game player than Isaac Okoro is at this stage in his career. And so I understand wow, Dr. Manhattan is just ruthless right now. That was so unnecessary. For the record, we disagree. We disagree, Dr. Manhattan. But anyways, the point that I'm making is, and then I'll let Corey jump in here and talk about the Lonzo Ball trade. Lonzo Ball for Okoro straight up, fine. I like that trade. Lonzo Ball now is not only an Okoro replacement, but a Ty Jerome replacement. That's where I'm not so sure if the Cavs, well, I already said, I don't think the Cavs are a better team than they were a month ago. Corey, Lonzo Ball trade, break it down.
In a vacuum, it makes a ton of sense. I think you're banking on a lot of stuff, including the fact that Lonzo Ball, less than 12 months ago, was determining whether he was able to continue his career with that knee injury that sidelined him for the better part of 3 seasons. And even though like the headline is, the Cavs basically got a 1-for-1 trade with the Bulls in a situation where I think everyone thought the Cavs would have to give up more than just Isaac Okoro to get a Lonzo Ball type player. But And now that it's like tough because like in the vacuum, you get the trade. It makes sense, especially for a team that's making a title swing. Okoro at some times in the postseason couldn't even be played on the floor. There's a lot of situations in which Lonzo Ball is useful in a playoff series, whether it's for his defense or being a primary ball handler when Garland or Mitchell wasn't on the floor. But that was also with the idea that Jerome was still going to be there. And I know we're going to talk about it later, but I think once the Sam Merrill signing happened, we all kind of got the idea that it was going to be really tough for the Cavs to kind of finagle this Ty Jerome contract as well. And it was going to come down to whether Dan Gilbert really wanted to kind of go for it. And I mean, Tony summarized it pretty well, but it's evident that Dan Gilbert at this point valued his tax write-offs more than the Cavs going for a title at this point. So good for you, Dan. But yeah, I like the Lonzo Ball signing. I don't like that, everyone could point to that. This is the first healthy season that Ty Jerome has played. And now we're kind of taking that same type of gamble with Lonzo Ball. Well, Ty Jerome came in with zero expectation in this season that he was even going to be this type of role for the Cavs. He grew into it as the season went along. And now Lonzo is basically the success of this trade is now predicated on, can Lonzo Ball play, I will say, like 55 games this year for the Cavs as the baseline, which is really a stretch.
Even that would be a miracle. I mean, I know I've talked about this already, but if anyone doesn't know, I read the familiar with it, but so this guy has had 3 surgeries on that knee to try and recover from it. The last one, the most recent one, because things had gotten so dire, he transplanted the cartilage from his knee with a cadaver's cartilage. So from a dead body, it was transplanted into his knee. That is how he is playing basketball right now. It's the first time in NBA history that someone has had that surgery. It's a medical miracle that he even returned and played 35 games. Now, yes, Big Rig points out, they have done that in the NFL and I believe the NHL, but they've never done it in the NBA. And so the fact that he even returned is a miracle. And notably, the reason why he only played 35 games was because of a wrist injury. So maybe the knee is in good shape. And I'd pray that the Cavs would not make a move for Lonzo Ball under at least somewhat of the assumption that he's going to replace Ty Jerome if they didn't have faith that Lonzo Ball could be healthy. And the most important thing is, as we all are aware of, the playoffs are what matters. If Lonzo Ball misses 25, 35 games in the regular season, but is healthy and helps you in the playoffs, that's a lot more valuable than Okoro playing 70 games and not being able to play in the playoffs, right? We all understand that. But what I've been saying also is, like, everyone says the regular season doesn't matter, but guess what? If the Cavs win 48 games next year, you're going to be pretty upset. Now, I don't think they're going to fall off a cliff that steep, but because your bench is a little more thin, all your 2-week injury, a 3-week injury to one of your star players, all of a sudden things could, last year everything broke right and you won 64. You're not going to have everything break right this season, and now you're a slightly worse team. And so I'm not going all doomsday. I still think the Cavs are, well set up to be a top 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. They very well could be the number 1 seed still, but their depth has taken a big hit. And a lot of it comes down to, is Lonzo Ball actually going to be able to play? Because if he can't, I know the trade wasn't Lonzo Ball for Ty Jerome and Okoro, but that's essentially what we have done. We have effectively swapped. We have lost Okoro and Ty Jerome. We have taken back Lonzo Ball. Up to this point, they could still sign. I think they have 2 open roster spots. They could sign 2 veteran free agents, right?
I think 3. I think it's 3.
Okay.
But they're only going to sign 2 because they go every year with 14. But yeah, it's just sort of like the last time Lonzo Ball played basketball in the spring, in any playoff setting, LeBron James was passing it to Kyle Korver in the corner in game 3 of the NBA Finals in a loss to the Golden State Warriors. Like, it was that long ago when Lonzo Ball last played any playoff basketball. So that's a long time ago. So it's like you're just putting a lot on him, and you're putting a lot on Craig Porter Jr. And I know that,
that 2-week stretch 3 years ago was cool.
It was. And it's like,
oh man.
And I think it's easy to talk yourself into, well, Ty Jerome came out of nowhere. Why can't Craig Porter Jr. come out of nowhere? And I think the difference is what we've seen from Craig Porter Jr. is that he is a very good third point guard. He is an NBA caliber player, but I think making the leap to being a like bona fide backup point guard, he would have to do a lot of things. He'd have to prove a lot of areas. Like the shooting is bad. He's not a confident shooter. That's where the 15 game stretch that he had, people were guarding him on the perimeter. Once they found out they didn't have to guard him on the perimeter, that's where his offense kind of dried up. He's not a good shooter. That's a problem. He doesn't have explosive athleticism that kind of limits how you can get to the rim. And he gets highlight plays on defense. He's good at timing up steals and particularly chase down blocks. Like that's a skill that he, Jetty, and LeBron just really have on lock. But he's not a good defender. Like he's not.
He's also 6'1".
Right. He's also
6'1". Ty Jerome was 6'5".
And these are all things that were why he was an undrafted player. And it's a testament to how hard he's worked to get to this point. And it's a testament to how good of basketball IQ he has. But to act like he has the physical tools or the skills to really take up that role, that's really like, you have to just kind of not be accepting what we've seen from Craig Porter Jr. for the last 2 years to kind of believe that. Because even Ty Jerome, I remember us talking about his shooting ability like 2 years ago. And it's like, well, he shot 38% from three or whatever with Golden State. If he stays healthy, if he gets his shots, then maybe you have something. And it's like, you can't really even do that same thing because you can't say, well, if Craig Porter Jr. becomes a good 3-point shooter, which he's never proven to be, if he becomes a good defender, if he becomes more athletic, so it's like, that's just what makes it tough. And he's somebody who I'm very comfortable if you said, hey, your point guard's out, your backup's going to have to step in, and your third string point guard's going to have to play 20 minutes tonight. Craig Porter Jr. can keep you on schedule better than like any third point guard who you're asking to fill that role. So like this isn't meant to be shots at Craig Porter Jr. It's just sort of like you can only expect so much from him. And when you put more on his plate, he's just not skilled enough to excel.
Craig is a very steady third string point guard. He's very steady at, I won't say at his best, but like at his most reasonable. He's just kind of, he's not doing anything amazing. He's not doing anything bad. He's just kind of steadying the ship. Ty Jerome was like all gas, no brakes, full throttle. I'll just take over games in a way that like no one expected, as you mentioned. But the one thing that was always there for Ty Jerome was the microwave scoring. And I pulled up his cleaning the glass page here because I almost think like I honestly, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills reading Cavs Twitter right now.
He's
I understand that everyone
guy.
He was insane. Did we not just watch Ty Jerome last year, guys? I understand that we're trying to cope at the loss right now and nobody wants to admit when the team got worse, but like, holy crap, dude. Ty Jerome was phenomenal last year. We're acting like the 49th pick in the draft or Craig Porter or Jalen Tyson are just going to step up and replicate that. They have never shown to be as good of an offensive player as Ty Jerome just became. And yes, it came out of nowhere, but like, I'll just read some of these cleaning the glass numbers for you. Last year, he was in the 95th percentile for effective field goal percentage, right? So that means only 5% of the league was better than him. Yeah,
I don't think so.
Pretty,
I think
pretty
it's
good.
The
high number's the good number. He was in the 96th percentile for 3-point shooting. He was in the 100th percentile from the all mid-range jump shots. He wasn't very good at the rim, whatever. It is what it is. But so that's last season, which seems like the outlier, and it is because the usage was very high. But the year before that, when he was healthy in Golden State, he was in the 74th percentile. And 2 years before that, his second season in the NBA, it was in the 87th percentile. And so you have a couple down years in between. But the point is, he's always had some offensive juice to his game. And one thing that I think is almost being lost in the fact that, yes, he was truly, like, I'm not even exaggerating, elite creating off the dribble for himself. We talked about it all year long. How many games did the Cavs just flat out win when Darius or Donovan was struggling or one of them was even hurt and Ty Jerome just came in and torched the opposing team's bench? But not only that, something that I think is almost going overlooked, and I mentioned this in my Fear the Sword story, which, by the way, go check out fearthesword.com. We have so much content coming out right now. Everyone's doing great work. But something that I wrote that is getting overlooked from all the people who say that the Cavs are soft or they don't play hard enough or whatever it may be, how many guys on the team have more intensity to them than Ty Jerome? And I understand that he kind of stunk it up against Indiana, but that dude plays hard. You could have listen. The issue with Ty Jerome against Indiana was that he was missing shots. He was missing shots that he hit basically all year, and I think he was pressing the issue too much. But you can't say that he's soft. You can't say that he was afraid of the moment. That's a guy. I'm losing my mind with this stuff. Like, I understand that he was bad against Indiana, but I've seen so many takes saying, "Oh well, the Cavs want 16 game players, not 82 game players." I understand he shot poorly against Indiana, but why are you just throwing out the fact that I truly believe Ty Jerome could help a playoff team? In fact, I think he did help us in the first round. I know it was Miami, but he was good in Game 5 against Indiana. So I'll let someone else take over.
If you didn't want guys who performed poorly in the playoffs, you know who you wouldn't have re-signed? Sam Merrill.
Right,
you wouldn't have done that because, he was picked on in the playoffs. He wasn't able to handle the ball pressure in the playoffs, and I love Sam Merrill. Everyone knows this is well documented.
This is blasphemy coming from me right now.
But you gotta call balls and strikes at some point in time, and it's he wasn't a good playoff player. Jarrett Allen, we haven't seen Jarrett Allen in the playoffs ever. We're still waiting for.
He had 2 games against the Orlando Magic last year that were really cool. And he was good against.
What happened after that, though?
Hold on. And then, he got hurt.
He took a shot to the rib.
After Game 2 of that game, he was like, I love playoff physicality. It's just something that I revel in. I was just like, what? Are you just trying to talk into existence?
He's talking at Marcus Morris.
But it's that's he wasn't the only guy who fell down. And yes, he did fall down, specifically when Max Strus inbounded him the ball late in Game 2, and who was that? Nembhard that stole it.
Can we talk about this too?
He was bad.
Can we talk about this too, though? Part of the reason why Ty Jerome stunk it up is because all of a sudden he went from the 6th most important player on the team to the 2nd most important because Mobley, Garland, and Mitchell were out. Listen, he sucked. I'm not denying. And Hunter. I'm not denying that he was bad, but listen, man, if your 6th man all of a sudden becomes your 2nd most important man, the results aren't going to be that good most of the time. And so even the YouTube chat is kind of going crazy saying he sucked in the playoffs, he was really good in the playoffs besides basically those 3 games. In Game 4, everyone was bad. But those 3 games, he wasn't very good. And they were overly reliant on him. And guess what? Your 6th man is going to have bad playoff games. It's going to happen. We've seen Donovan Mitchell have entire series where he sucked. Donovan Mitchell stunk against the Knicks in 2023. Does that mean, I think we lost Jackson, by the way. I don't know what happened. But does that mean that Donovan Mitchell is not a playoff riser? Guess what? Ty Jerome, maybe he just had 3 bad games. And the thing is, last thing, and then I'm going to let Corey jump in because we have both been ranting. Just because Ty Jerome had a bad 3 games, people are acting like we traded Ty Jerome for someone else. No, we just lost Ty Jerome for nothing, for a price that we could have matched.
Could have had Ball and Jerome. We could have had them both.
We could have had them both. We didn't have to choose. You didn't have to choose. You didn't even have to choose between Sam and Ty.
You made the wrong choice. So
yeah, that was the choice.
But you didn't have to choose because the 81st richest person in the world owns the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he has been collecting welfare checks from the NBA for the last 7 years in the luxury tax payments. So it's not like that was an issue. And I want to bring this up because nobody understands the second apron. Nobody understands it. People say, well, you can't do it because of the second apron. Well, you can do it because of the second apron. And you know what the second apron is going to do? The second apron is going to break up this core in 3 years. So the Cavs have this year, next year, and possibly a 3rd season, but mostly just 2 more years before the second apron will actually break up this core or going to make this core the Phoenix Suns. So you have a very small window because next year, Max Strus is going to be a free agent and DeAndre Hunter are going to be free agents. If Dan is unwilling to pay $84 million to keep Jerome and Merrill on the team, he's not going to pay the repeater tax to keep both Hunter and Strus. So the repeater tax, for people that don't know, the Cavs, if they would have signed Jerome, would have had to pay $84 extra million. The repeater tax is 2x what they would have had to pay. And the Cavs aren't going to get out of the luxury tax this year. So
Jetty, letting them know. He just found out. he saw the Shams tweet.
He has delayed alerts.
So that number is going to grow to about could grow up to 400 million next season to keep in luxury tax payments to keep everybody together. And like, if you're not willing to do that for Ty Jerome, you're not going to be willing to do that to keep everybody.
Yeah.
And if you sign Ty Jerome, it's not like you couldn't have traded him next offseason. Like they did that with Isaac Okoro. If you can trade Isaac Okoro, who I think was on a worse contract, for a useful NBA player, then you could have traded Ty Jerome, attached a couple second round picks. So this is the whole thing. Like, you're a worse team now, and your future is just as bad as it was before. You're not going to be better in the future because of
financially,
or from like the second apron perspective or anything. So that's why it's like, if you want to go all in for LeBron, you're not giving up much in the future, because this team will not be together.
We should talk LeBron near the end, because that's a fun take, but we'll save it.
Sorry,
Corey,
Corey.
I want to get Corey in here, because me and Jackson are just venting and going crazy. We got to talk. We got to get your take on the loss of Ty Jerome and whether or not. So basically, what's your take on losing Ty Jerome, and what's your take on, how do the Cavs replace the scoring that he gave us? Also, real quick, Hustle. Hating in the chat. I just want to say I see you. Hating
Big time.
All right. I've been noticing it. All right. And I'm calling you out. I don't know what you're talking about, but Corey, let him know.
So here's the thing. If there's one thing the Cavs have been known for in the postseason, it's not being available to play. So what do we do to solve this problem? We trade for Lonzo Ball, who notably is not able to play. And now Ty Jerome, who came off his healthiest season in his career with no reason to think that he's going to be hurt to the extent that he has in the seasons past, is now gone. Sam Merrill, who we couldn't play in the postseason, is now gone. Is still here. I wish he was gone. But now...
Whoa. We don't actually wish he was gone. Let's chill.
I don't have the connection to Sam that you do. We're not on a first-name basis. No, it's just... I'm like... The Cavs, it's like we're so far removed from last offseason, where the main thing amongst the fan base was the Cavs are literally doing nothing. They're standing pat. We need them to acquire some bench players. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, Tony was like the only person that was satisfied with the Cavs offseason to maneuver their bench around out of the three of us.
No, that was me.
That was Jackson. Oh. Yeah, I thought the bench sucked last season, and now I think the bench sucks again.
But now they're doing it by being too active. They're going like 2K manage offseason mode, trying to get cute with moving pieces around, trying to shuffle the deck. But all they're doing is taking away talent that they used in the postseason. I really liked your point, Tony, about Ty Jerome. It's in the postseason because, a lot of star players don't play well for an entire series. And that's when their teams are totally fine. Teams in the postseason spend an extra amount of time to focus on key points of offense. And when Ty Jerome is your second best player, it's very easy to kind of get rid of the stuff he's good at. Ty Jerome was also on an unnatural heater all season, playing the best basketball, arguably some of the most efficient basketball in the league. The amount of times he made shots that most players, like he took shots that we would scream at Karis LeVert for taking 9 times out of 10. And then, but Ty Jerome was making them. Who's to say that would have carried over? Probably not. But still, the fact now there's no one on the Cavs bench, in my opinion, that can take over that spot. There is no longer a heat check guy. Sam Merrill, arguably, okay. But Sam Merrill's shot profile is way less diverse than Ty Jerome's. Ty Jerome is one of the only self-creators the Cavs even had. Lonzo Ball can shoot. He has never been described as an offensive creator on his own. Sam Merrill is dependent on getting good looks while being in motion. Max Strus, if he ends up being a bench player, is probably the closest thing, and it's not even that close, to be honest. The Cavs have really dug themselves into a situation where they're now at a dearth of offensive options off the bench. There are not many players when the game's getting tight. Say one of the starters goes cold. Let's say DeAndre Hunter, for example, can't hit a shot. Who are they going to turn to try to get them into the game? I don't want to hear about how Proctor at Duke looked really good. It's not going to happen. It's the same story of saying like, oh, but Tyson looked good in limited stretches. Oh, Emoni Bates looks like he has something in the tank. The fact of the matter is players can look really good when they're playing in garbage time or if they're playing in the G League. The Cavs now have 0 proven shot creators off their bench. And it's just a situation where like maybe they're going to do something that we are not prepared for. But at this point, I'm just looking at what we have. I'm looking at what's available. And now, I mean, they're just really playing themselves into a situation where all their star players have to play at the highest level for this team to even be back to what I think they were last year offensively, which is a really high bar, I understand, but also like you're supposed to build on last year. And now they have to solve so many more problems they didn't even have to solve last year. The nice thing about staying pat last offseason was that the continuity was there. So we kind of knew what things were going to be. And they got an addition of Ty Jerome playing at a 6-man of the year level. That's all gone. And I don't really see a situation or a trade or a free agent signing that's really going to change my mind at this point, unless something drastic happens that we just really don't know. But there's not even breadcrumbs that like say otherwise. And I don't want to hear Malcolm Brogdon's going to solve these problems either.
You're not in on the Jordan Clarkson reunion?
Oh, yeah. I love players that like, okay, why don't we just trade for Colin Sexton? Apparently all it cost was a crumb to get Colin Sexton.
Boys, crazy. I have a radical question I want to ask you guys.
Jeez. All right, let's hear it.
So if you could undo the DeAndre Hunter trade and all the repercussions that have come from it, would you do it?
Well, I thought about this. Time out though. What repercussions?
So
I don't know if you could. I don't know if you could attach that to him.
Lose Ty Jerome. So you lose Ty Jerome for Lonzo Ball. So like everything that's happened after that trade.
Do we think there's a direct line between getting Hunter and losing Ty Jerome? I don't know if there is.
I think monetarily there's some.
So yeah,
I think not having Karis LeVert now hurts more than it did back then, though.
Because Ty Jerome was your kind of like Karis LeVert. Like you don't need Karis LeVert because you have that. But also like, was the bench ever as good once they got rid of Karis LeVert? Because I think that when you really had 4 guys who could reliably create their own shot. I know Karis LeVert's probably 4th on that list of guys we prefer to see create their own shot, but he's somebody who could do that. Karis LeVert was much better at setting up teammates than Ty Jerome.
Both of them.
And really probably Mitchell as well, if we're, being completely honest, or at least
only, I would say on average, yes, but there are times where Donovan Mitchell decides he wants to be a point guard, and you're like, why don't you do this all the time? But like, I get why he doesn't do it all the time.
Yeah,
because it's a way different style.
They do it differently because like LeVert would create angles inside, etc. Mitchell just kind of goes downhill and swings to the corner. So anyways, but yeah, like I think that this bench, it would probably be better served with just the additional ball handling that you would get from a Karis LeVert type.
I do have a counter though.
Okay.
And I know we all agree on this. DeAndre Hunter shouldn't be on the bench anyways. So ultimately, I think the DeAndre Hunter trade, I would still do it because I still think DeAndre Hunter is who you want starting at the wing. Yes, so it's everything else now.
I'm more so asking, would you rather have LeVert and Jerome or Hunter?
Yeah. Can I still trade Yang to the Celtics?
Is that?
Because that was a part of it as well.
Just sent into the void. Well, we got a new Niang at home now. He's a drafting stash that we don't have to talk about. But yeah, so this was a point that I wanted to make, and Corey was kind of mentioning it, and we have talked about this forever. I know Jackson's been talking about this for months. But if you just look at the Indiana Pacers series, there is no way that you look at that series and you walk away with the idea that, you know what the Cavs need less of? Guys who can create their own shot. Guys who are good at dribbling the ball and creating their own shot. Let's just run Craig Porter, Lonzo Ball. Hey, 49th pick in the draft. Come on, man. Let's go. Like,
he does have a name, guys.
I know, Tyrese Proctor. I know, but I emphasize it because I hope that he's good. Let me be clear on this too. And I like Craig Porter Jr. I hope that he surprises me. I hope Jalen Tyson surprises me. But you could have had all of that and Ty Jerome. That's why we're mad. We're not mad because we're like, those guys suck. We're mad because you could have had all of them if Dan Gilbert would have just paid a little more. And I understand. I want to be fair to Dan. I want to be fair to Dan. He has been, I would say, one of the better owners in the NBA. He's typically been willing to pay the price, but in this case, he didn't. We also don't know exactly why Ty Jerome didn't come back. Maybe he just straight up didn't want to be in Cleveland. We don't know yet. We could get more answers to that. But the point that I'm making is the reason why we are frustrated, and I agree, Demo. You're right, Demo. But The reason why we're frustrated is because we could have had all of that. It could have been an addition. You want as many ball handlers, playmakers, and shot creators as you can possibly get in today's NBA. And the Cavs just let one walk out the door who was, need I remind everybody, a 6 Man of the Year candidate who was shooting like blistering hot splits from every single spot on the floor. And yes, we found out he's not a point guard in the hard way. But that's what I'm saying is you don't get better by losing one of the only guys who could dribble the ball and create for himself a little bit. In fact, that's why you need as many of them as you can get, because guess what? Maybe Darius Garland's going to have a series where he's not good. Hopefully he'll have a series where he's good at some point, but maybe Donovan
Would be
Mitchell,
a pleasant surprise.
Donovan Mitchell will have a series where he's not shooting well. Maybe DeAndre Hunter should be in the starting lineup. And then like there's an issue on the bench, in my opinion, if you start DeAndre Hunter, because you don't want Lonzo Ball, Max Strus, and Sam Merrill all coming off your bench. It just doesn't make sense. And so there's just a lot of issues that are now opened up by not having Ty Jerome. And I'm not happy, to say the least.
And the thing is that Ball would have made Jerome's life so much easier because you mentioned he's not a point guard. But the thing that's so cool about Ball is that he can play multiple positions because of his height and his versatility as a defender, where you could roll out lineups, which was Ty Jerome is the smallest guy on the court, but you also have Mitchell and Ball out there, or you do lineups with Jerome and Garland and Ball. Like there's a lot of different things that you could have done with those lineups that would have taken some of that playmaking burden off of Jerome, allowed him to be a little more of a catch and shoot guy, which is tough because he had the slowest release in NBA history. But he could have been more of like a second side creator and initiator. And I think that would have been a role that would have suited him much better. So that's where the whole thing is like so frustrating, because there was like a day where you were like, wow, Ball is like the perfect fit for everything that the Cavs need. And now you're like, well, now the Cavs need what they just let walk out the door.
The closest thing the Cavs have had to like having lineup versatility has now gone out the window. And it feels like we thought with DeAndre Hunter, it was going to be the same thing, where it's like, wow, having Hunter and we could do so many cool things with him. It just turns out the Cavs just want to play the most vanilla 1 through 5 basketball of all time, because every time they've been somewhat close to the idea or the concept of free moving basketball, they probably watched the finals this year and were like, what are we watching right now? Like these teams are playing positional players and all these creative, cool spots. What if we trade for Lonzo Ball, look at our roster and go, hey, let's not do that. Let's just do the same thing we had last time, except make our lives more challenging. To go back really far back to the Ty Jerome contract thing. There was a few rants in between. I just needed to hit reverse real quick. I feel like Ty Jerome with the whole contract thing, the thing that stood out to me was like Ty Jerome probably knew that the Cavs had the most value on Ty Jerome of any team in the league. So he figured if any team was going to commit the money that he was looking for, it would be the Cavs, because they knew exactly what they had in that system. And when the Cavs decided to scoff at it and immediately turn to Lonzo Ball and be like, you're the chosen one now, Ty Jerome's like, well, I'm not going back for $10 million. I was realistically, like, what do we think Ty Jerome was actually expecting? Like from the Cavs, 12 million?
Well, it was I think the reporting was 14. He wanted 14. So he got 5 million less.
Yeah, so like it's just a dumbfounding thing that the Cavs they know their window is tight and they willingly just decided to make their lives harder. And we know that it's going to come back not to Kobe Altman, but it's probably going to be like, why can't Kenny Atkinson figure out this bench is now going to be the narrative of the Cavs season.
Yeah, and like Jerome did mismanage it, but also it's probably Kenny loves Sam. And I think that that's been well documented and that's pretty clear. So this is probably a lineup that Kenny is very comfortable with. I feel like I don't want to like project too much, but it seems like Ty might not have always been the type of guy that Kenny really liked the playing style of. So I can see why he chose Merrill over, or why he would choose. Like this is all projecting because we don't really know.
Well, I want to build on this too. Well,
go for it.
Just really quickly, and then I'll let Corey go, because you're kind of hitting on something that I've seen Twitter say and I've seen the YouTube chat say a few times. I completely reject this idea that Ty Jerome is a product of Kenny Atkinson's system. If you watched Ty Jerome play last year, this is not a guy that I was like, oh, he just kind of fits into a system. I saw a guy who looked like he was going rogue at times. The way that he was playing was not like, oh, he's just benefiting from moving off ball and someone setting him up. I'm like, dude, Ty Jerome was just busting everyone's ass one-on-one. Like, this is not that. I have no reason to think maybe he won't stay healthy. Maybe that'll be the concern. I'm sure he's not going to shoot in the 100th percentile again, but like, he's going to be good.
He would have benefited from the JV Bickerstaff system much more.
Yeah, no, seriously, yeah. But
I'm surprised that money did not go
clashing there from what we understand.
Karras. I think that was pretty interesting from them. But I also think it's interesting the way that, I don't know how much you guys read into it, the Shams Charania excerpt for the Merrill signing, where it said that they view Merrill as good point guard depth. I think that was...
Well,
I thought that was pretty interesting.
I mean, that's a typo.
He gets talking points from like agents and stuff.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like,
I don't know if Shams has seen Sam Merrill play basketball. I don't want to,
Well,
that was a typo because
I didn't know if he was watching.
Not as a point guard.
I mean, summer league. He basically was the pseudo point guard.
He was a point guard. He was a point guard in college. So so this is what I'll say about Sam. Sam is actually somebody who I think is a good ball handler, relatively speaking, and I think Sam brings functionally, sure. Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. I think Sam is like a playmaker with how he can play off ball, where he like you want your point guard to open things up for your other players. Like that's what you ideally want. He does that kind of without the ball in his hands and sometimes with the ball in his hands. And that's what I think can be like a point guard like skill if you kind of like twist the definition of point guard. So I do want to say that that's something that Sam provides, that like even as good as Max Strus is a better player, Max Strus doesn't provide that. Nobody else on the Cavs provides that, really.
We need to combine Max Strus and Sam Merrill. They need to become one person. Someone get on it. Someone needs
Tyler
to
Herro?
Invent like a time machine that goes wrong and it just morphs them together. Because we literally, if they just were the same person, life would be so much easier for the Cavs. But on the Sam Merrill point, really quickly, we might as well mention this because I know some people were asking this. I was happy with the $9 million for Sam Merrill. That's solid. He's an elite 3-point shooter. I hope that it gets a little closer to 40% again this year. But like, I was happy with it. And again, from what I understand, the Cavs did offer Ty Jerome $10 million and he declined. We will find out more information on that, I am sure. But they did try to keep Ty Jerome. At least they offered him something. But the point is that ultimately, I've seen a lot of it was like it was Sam or Ty Jerome. I think it could have been both. I don't see any reason why it couldn't have been both.
Well, I think they probably would have. All the reporting suggested that they were trying to get rid of Isaac Okoro, like trying to salary dump him.
Yeah.
So I think that the choice was either Ball and Merrill and no Okoro and no Jerome, or Merrill and Jerome, no Ball,
and then a salary dump with Okoro. Yeah. Yes.
So that's where like. And again, that didn't necessarily need to be a choice because that's all luxury tax related.
Yeah. And it's like I made this joke in the Junkyard Pod group chat. It's a very stupid, cringy joke, but there is a luxury to being in the luxury tax. All right, guys, you go into the luxury tax. Sometimes, certain teams aren't as lucky to say this, but
shout out Raptors.
Certain teams go into the luxury tax for bad reasons. I would argue that the Cavs were in the luxury tax for a good reason. They were the favorites to come out of the Eastern Conference in an era where there's a chance. And they still are. Yes, again, we can't repeat that enough. I know we're being very negative and we're venting. It's literally, it is a live reaction. But we're still all high on the Cavs. We're still all very high on the Cavs. It's just they could have been even better. And when you have a championship window open, and I think honestly we could transition to a quick LeBron segment and then wrap this up. I have two things quickly to say before we go to the LeBron thing. One, I think the Cavs got slightly worse now, is what I was just saying. And two, Old Kid mentioned this earlier, and we'll probably do a more in-depth in-depth video on this at some point. But it is possible that by moving off of Ty Jerome, replacing him with Lonzo Ball, bringing back Sam Merrill, maybe the idea is we're pivoting to a more Evan Mobley centered second unit where the usage is going more through Evan Mobley and less through trying to juggle the ball between three guards who need it in their hands. That would be the idea, and I could see that. But Jackson, you wrote a very spicy but albeit incredible story for Fearless Sword, which, listen, I'll tell you guys right now, the LeBron idea is probably never going to happen, and my initial reaction was no way. But Jackson really sweetened it up in a way that I thought was very great. So I'm going to let Jackson take this away and make the case for me why LeBron James, why the Cleveland Cavaliers should go all in and bring the king back to Cleveland.
Thank you, Mr. Pesta. So what I will say is that I think this is an important preface, and I probably should have explained this a little better in the article on fearthesword.com. Check it out. Is that your title windows with the CBA are very small, and it's not just for the Ty Jerome situation. It's luxury tax related. That was a luxury tax issue, but you will be getting more significant second apron ramifications and more significant luxury tax ramifications where you have to be a truly irrational actor to keep your team together with the repeater tax, which no team's going to do. So even though it's easy to look at, hey, Darius Garland is 26 years old, Jarrett Allen is 27 years old. It's easy to look at players like that and say, hey, we will continue to be good going forward, when in reality, you're probably not going to be able to have 3 of the 4 core 4 together, and you may only be able to have 2 of the 4 going forward. So this is a decision that the way the Cavs are currently structured, Donovan Mitchell has a player option that comes due in 3 years or 2 years. That is when that's going to be a pivot point for the Cavs where they will likely have to decide which directions to go because of Donovan Mitchell's, the new number that he's going to make, Darius Garland's new number, Jarrett Allen's contract will be coming, his extension will be on the books, and Evan Mobley's contract will continue to rise. So you throw in Max Strus and Hunter needing new contracts too. This team is not going to be all together. The best chance the Cavs have to win a title was last year, this upcoming season, and next season at probably the last point before they really have to start making some significant changes. So with that in mind, why would you not just go all in on this brief window that you have where the Boston Celtics are gone, where the Indiana Pacers aren't going to be a factor, where the New York Knicks and the Orlando Magic are the best teams in front of you in the Eastern Conference?
Maybe the Atlanta Hawks.
They just signed Luke Kennard. They're going all in.
And Alexander Walker, they lost Levert, but okay.
Those are good moves. So we don't want to, But those are the teams that you're going to be competing with. And if you have LeBron James, do you feel better about getting through the East and the NBA Finals? If you have, a trade would have to be Darius Garland, Max Strus, and Jarrett Allen. Those 3 would all have to go out.
Someone, I think it was on ESPN. I'm misremembering. Someone said they could do it without Garland, but with Hunter in there instead. I don't know if that's financially possible.
No, they can't.
Doesn't sound like it.
Do it because of
nobody understands.
I've tried so
The
hard.
trade machine said it's good.
Nobody understands.
You have to get to $72 million to trade out.
Okay.
To get LeBron James back.
Oh, sorry. They said you would need a third team involved as well. So that was.
Well, you need a third team involved.
You need a magical third team
because the Lakers can't take back everybody. So the Cavs have to send out $72 million and also get a third team involved because the Lakers they can't make the math work. So you need a lot of stuff. It's improbable, but I think we lost Tony.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
No, we can't.
Okay, I was talking. I don't know if you heard anything I said.
No.
Okay, all I was going to say is that it's very unlikely that it happens. I think we all understand that it's very unlikely.
But this is something they explored with Kevin Durant. So
yes,
there's not a precedence there to a degree, obviously.
Yeah.
And so if you were to find all the mechanics to make it work, send out Darius Garland, Jarrett Allen, and Max Strus, you would be left with a lineup that features Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, LeBron James, DeAndre Hunter, Lonzo Ball, and Sam Merrill as kind of your core with Dean Wade and minimum contract guys. That team, do you have more faith in that team going and winning a championship in the next 2 years, or do you have more faith in this current team winning a championship in the next 2 years? And if your answer is the LeBron team, then you should make that trade because this whole thing's going to blow up in 2 years anyways.
That's the point that you drove home. That last point is that they are going to have to pivot from this core at some point anyways because of the CBA. With that said, Like, I agree. Listen, as bad as that bench would be, as horrible as that depth would be, and as how you're like one injury away from it all falling disastrously apart, LeBron, Mobley, and Mitchell are not losing in the Eastern Conference. And I can't trust enough that this is all very unlikely. I don't want people to think that this is like, oh, it's about to happen. The Junkyard Pod said it's going to happen. That's not what's happening. But
I'll say it's happening.
Yeah, there we go, Corey. Aggregate. Make sure you aggregate. Corey Walsh, Junkyard Pod says
the least credible
LeBron James to Cleveland in play. You guys heard it here first. But in all seriousness, those three right there, Mobley, Mitchell, and LeBron, they're probably getting through the Eastern Conference. The problem is,
with Hunter,
I don't think it's
Hunter's
with Hunter as well. Yes, the problem is, I think they would have a good chance. I don't know if it's like nothing's a guarantee in basketball. My issue with this hypothetical is with this current core four, if you pivot in 2 to 3 years, I'm assuming you're going to get a lot of, or at least some sort of assets back from Darius Garland, from Jarrett Allen, whoever it may be that you're moving on from, Donovan Mitchell, whatever it is, right? We assume Mobley will be the centerpiece for the second era of Cavs basketball. You can't really do that with LeBron James because he'll be like 44 years old. So I understand that, and I would pick the current core because of that.
You would be
under the second apron.
You'd be under the second apron this year too. So you're delaying some of those penalties as well. So that is worth pointing out. And you can team build a little better because you would have access to
more options,
mid-level, etc.
Yeah, who knows who they could add in that hypothetical scenario around the bench. I definitely see your vision. I get it. It's what I said on Twitter, and this is basically my take. It's not necessarily a move that I'm going to be advocating for or saying that I want to see happen, but if it did happen, it's not going to be hard for me to get excited about, right? And I think that it would kneecap their future in a way that, maybe isn't as true if you just keep this core and then you rebuild around, using Garland, Mitchell, whoever it may be. But if LeBron's like, there are some Cavs fans, I don't know what it is. There are some Cavs fans who are just like they hate LeBron. I don't get it.
Offline.
I know.
If you'd like to.
Well, I think I know what type of Cavs fans they are, but it's just like, guys, he's LeBron freaking James, and I won't even go there. I think you all know what I'm saying.
What I will say is that would be a good move. Bronny loves this team. Bronny, would you rather have Bronny or Craig Porter Jr.? I think that's a very open conversation.
They're the same player.
That's
They're
also
actually pretty similar, though.
Yeah.
When's the last time Craig Porter Jr. got Jrue Holiday comps by KD?
Yeah, no, this is true. Should we tag on the Emoni Bates news real quick?
No.
Okay.
That's a really good segment.
I do want to talk about the bench. Real quick.
Okay, yes. Yeah.
With LeBron James. Something that's really going to happen.
We're doing
Emoni Bates. Is Emoni Bates a good fit with LeBron?
So what I will say is that LeBron's superpower is that he can kind of morph into whatever the lineup around him needs. So if you put a lineup around him of Hunter, Ball, Merrill, and insert whoever's playing center in this lineup, I think he could make those bench lineups functionally work better in a playoff setting than they probably would work now in a playoff setting with your current team. And that's where I think that like the depth argument kind of falls flat to me, where it's like LeBron's skill set just papers over so many things and his positional versatility, and that he can be point guard and power forward at the same time, that I wouldn't have concerns about the depth for next season unless like two players got injured. Whereas this season, I'm concerned about going into with this roster, I'm concerned about the depth if two players get injured right now. So that's where I don't see us functionally being in a different spot from a bench perspective in playoff lineups in that scenario that I do in this one. So that's the last thing I'll say.
Yeah, and the obvious fear is he's the oldest player in the NBA. At some point, he's going to decline. Maybe it's not this year. Maybe it's 8 years from now, for all I know. But like the dilemma there is if you're Kobe Altman, it's like, okay, you make this trade. Let's say LeBron either declines or, God forbid, has a career-ending injury. And it's like, well, cool, you just traded everything for the oldest player in the NBA, you idiot. Why would you trade a 25-year-old borderline all-NBA player for a 41-year-old? Like, everyone, this is what's so crazy about LeBron is that he is 40, he's 40, right? He'll be 41, the oldest player in the NBA, And this is like a legitimate conversation that we're actually having. And like, you could kind of make the case for it, but like you could never imagine discussing a trade for a 25-year-old for the oldest player in the NBA with any other player in NBA history. It speaks to how great LeBron is. But we already
know see how much was put on LeBron's like plate for the Lakers last year. JJ Redick had him playing every position and coaching. So like if you put him
and podcasting, he kept doing the old man in the three too. Yeah. He was doing it all.
Yeah. So like this is where I believe it's Mind the Game. But
yeah, come on, dude.
He's doing like he had to be the point guard. He had to be the center for starting lineups in the playoffs last year. Like that's not something you have to do. Well, Jackson Hayes played like 3 minutes total in the playoffs.
He's available still.
He would have so much less responsibilities with Cleveland, and that's where it's like, what if you got a better version of LeBron than we saw last year? Because I honestly think that's more likely than a worse version of LeBron if you put less stuff on his plate, which is a crazy thing to say.
Honestly, I feel like there was the only pushback for the Cavs with the Kevin Durant thing was that people were like, oh my God, we have to get rid of Darius Garland straight up for Kevin Durant. No, but I feel like people gave a lot less pushback for the Kevin Durant trade when hypothetically the fit is so much better with LeBron than it would have been with Kevin Durant.
Oh, yeah.
And Kevin Durant has a season-ending injury. He's had it like 3 times already. LeBron just goes through these periods where he has like a weird calf cramp or something that sidelines him, which is really just glorified rest because he can't rest any other way unless he pulls like a groin or something. LeBron, I 100% agree with you, Jackson, about the bench too, where the bench I would feel infinitely better if it's being run by LeBron versus saying like, all right, so it's going to be Darius Garland in the scraps or Donovan Mitchell with the scraps, and then hoping that that Evan Mobley is going to be able to, like, I know we've seen circumstances in which Evan Mobley has been able to be the hub of the offense. That didn't happen in the postseason, which told me that the staff is not 100% behind Evan Mobley at this point in his career being that hub. So why are we expecting another offseason Evan Mobley is going to turn into Jokic light or something like that, or even like a Şengün level of facilitator? LeBron can do that. We only need LeBron for 2 years to play at like 90% of the level that he just showed. Yeah. So I would feel more comfortable if this is the direction the Cavs are heading in, even though the moves right now do not tell us that the Cavs agree that they're pushing all the chips in by the move, because they would have signed Ty Jerome if that was the case.
Well, actually, they wouldn't have signed Ty Jerome because they couldn't have, because then they would have had to actually trade out $85 million or something like that, which would have made it.
So what you're saying is this was all a ruse to set up LeBron James.
All righty. When's the Shams alert coming in?
Bringing this back to the current Cavs, and then we'll wrap this up. I want to end by saying this. I want to end by saying this because, again, I see there's no nuance in this discussion on Twitter already. It's, everyone's like, oh, why are you so worried about losing Ty Jerome? The Cavs are still going to be good. I've said that 100 times already. Ultimately, what is going to determine whether the Cavs break through and win a championship, aside from health, aside from shooting luck and all those things that we're going to talk about forever, it's number 4. It's Evan Mobley, right? Like, he has to make a leap. He already took a really huge step forward last year. He made a leap last year. He has to be even better next season, even better in the playoffs. He needs to demand the ball. I think it goes both ways. I think the Cavs need to get him involved. I also think at a certain point, you just got to go get it. So there it goes back and forth. We'll talk about it all summer long. But as much as we were upset that Ty Jerome is gone, I don't think the ceiling of this team has meaningfully been changed. I do think that they have a lower floor now because if Lonzo doesn't play or if Garland or Mitchell have like a couple week injury, there's just not much there to back them up anymore. But the ceiling still goes through number 4. So that's what I'm going to be looking for. And I think we're going to do more content. We're going to talk. Listen, there's going to be that dead point in the off season where we have nothing to talk about. So we'll just talk a million different ways. Like maybe they could, could Evan Mobley run like this action or whatever? Like we'll do lots of silly podcasts like that. I do want to do another episode, hopefully at some point, talking about some veteran minimum free agent options. Unfortunately, like all of the good ones are already being taken. So there's not much there. I don't know if Jackson's here or not. There he is. Point is, did you hear what I said? Did you have any takes?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Sorry, no. The point is, the Cavs, as much as we were disappointed that Ty Jerome is gone, the ceiling ultimately hasn't changed. I still think we should feel good about the team, but I feel slightly less good than I did 24 hours ago.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think minimum contract guys are going to save this team. I think that if you're relying on minimum contract guys, then you don't have enough depth.
They're veteran minimum for a reason. Al Horford is one of the few guys who I think would actually like legitimately help. I'm also a sicko. I've been somewhat talking myself into Russell Westbrook, but I don't think it really works with Lonzo Ball.
You are a sicko.
I would love that for the content. I don't know if that
exactly
makes a better team.
I wouldn't love that. Period.
You let him play in the regular season. He gets rebounds. He runs the floor, and then you bench him in the playoffs. You know that's all it is.
The only way I would ever enjoy the Russell Westbrook signing is the 50-minute highlight video that Mac would put on Twitter. From the Russell Westbrook highlights.
Well,
I would take Al Horford though. I would gladly take old man Al. I want that demon on our team. I would take Larry Nance back too.
Yeah,
for the 2 games he's healthy, that'd be sick.
Well, it's so tough for a backup center for the Cavs because ideally you want somebody who could play with both Allen and Mobley, and that's really like a small list of guys who can feasibly do both. I guess a good power forward
might be able to,
But Horford, like Horford and Nance are 2 guys on that could actually do that. So that's where it's like those would be good fits, but it's also tough to tell someone to take a minimum contract.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to take a minimum contract to play a smaller role. So don't get your hopes up too much.
Money for less exposure. Who says no?
Although at the same time, an old man Al, maybe he wants a little bit less of a role. He's like, dude, Kristaps was killing me. I didn't expect to play this.
I don't know what he had for the last few months, but that sucked.
Like, good God, I thought I was going to get to play every other night. I'm over here starting at center. Where's Luke Cornett? Like, what's going on? So, yeah, and also, like, I love Tristan Thompson. He's a 2016 legend. I think the ship has sailed here. Yeah, he's the player coach position, or just he can be around the team. Maybe just don't even let him.
I don't want him on the team.
Take his key card away. I'm joking a little bit, but yeah, like the veteran minimum is not going to make a big difference, but there are a few guys out there who could help. So if we have time at some point, I know Jackson's about to be on vacation, so he unfortunately will miss out on the Russell Westbrook Al Horford discourse. That me and Corey will have to hold it down.
Yeah, it's going to be sick. Can't believe you're skipping out on that.
Well, it is what it is.
Yeah, he's really bummed out, as you could tell.
Yeah.
But anyways, I think that's all for this episode of the Junkyard Pod. I want to thank everyone on Playback and YouTube for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this live reaction to the Ty Jerome news and all the different crazy topics that we got into here. If you're new to Playback or YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. Leave us a like. We really appreciate it. We'll have more content coming soon. And with all that being said, go Cavs.
I agree. Go Cavs. We've got to talk about Emoni Bates.
I was going to say.
Unbelievable.
Emoni Bates.